The next two videos will discuss modal verbs. In this first one, we will discuss can, could, may, might, but especially we will outline what are the main characteristics of modal verbs, which, as you can see, are also called anomalous finites. They are very peculiar verbs, and I will show you in what way. Let's look at the main characteristics first. They don't take the S in the third person singular of the present simple, which means, just to give you a short example, that if I need to conjugate the verb can in all the various persons, I will always have the word can. So, I can, you can, he, she, it can. As you can see, there is no S at the end of the third person singular. In the second place, they are followed by verbs in the infinitive without the to, which translated means that they are followed by the base form of a verb, and the base form is never preceded by to. They themselves don't have the infinitive. So, as we have just mentioned, we speak of can, could, may, might, etc., but we never use the to in front of it. They don't have the gerund, which means that we cannot use any of the modal verbs in the continuous forms of the verbs. They can't be used with any other verb requiring an auxiliary because, as it says here in the fourth characteristic, which is extremely important, they are themselves auxiliaries, therefore they behave as such. What does that mean? That unlike any other verb apart from to be, which, for instance, when used in questions, take the auxiliary do to form the question. In the case of all the modal verbs, they are self-sufficient and will not take any other auxiliary to support them. When we say that they cannot be used in the future, or compound verbs, we are in fact saying that there are some verb tenses that cannot be used with the modals, that, as we will see, except for will, but that is another issue. Compound verbs are all those verbs that are made up by two or more parts of verbs. So, for instance, as we will see in future modules, more advanced grammar modules, in the present perfect, we have, for instance, two parts of the verb. The present perfect is always built by the auxiliary have in the present simple, followed by the past participle of the main verb of the sentence. So these are the main characteristics which makes the modal verbs quite peculiar. They behave in a totally different way as compared to the so-called typical verb. Let's take a closer look at can, could, may, might. Many non-English speaking people might find these two somehow similar, but they in fact are they in fact have some subtle differences. As we can immediately show by underlining the verb in parentheses, the verb construction in parentheses that we normally use when we want or when we need to substitute the modal. So in the case of can and could, we can say that it can be replaced by to be able to, which also explains more in detail what the verb, what the two modals can and could actually mean. In other words, the ability or the capacity of doing something but in different types of way, as we will see. Whereas instead, may and might will be replaced in the first case by to be allowed to when we are asking for permission to do something, but it can also be replaced by to be likely. So as you can see, the the two models are quite different. Let's look at can and could. As we have said, they both express the ability or opportunity to do something. As we can see in the two example sentences, I will come as soon as I can. This as soon as I can tells us that as soon as I am able to overcome some obstacle, I will be there. I could not do anything for them refers to an action in the past, underlining the fact that the person speaking was not able to do anything for this them object. It also expresses skill in the sense of knowing how to do something. So, for instance, if I say in this context I can't swim, I am saying that I do not know how to swim. I haven't learned how to swim. And if I ask someone, can you play tennis? What I'm actually asking is, do you know how to play tennis? We also use can with negative assumptions. In other words, when we want to underline that we are assuming something in the negative. It can't be so late. I'm almost as if I am stressing the fact that I didn't realize that it had gotten so late. As we have already said, it is replaced by to be able to for all the missing verb tenses of the modal can and could. So she cannot speak, she isn't able to speak. I can also use it in the past. She wasn't able to speak, or for instance, in the present perfect, she hasn't been able to speak, but I cannot say she hasn't can to speak. It doesn't make any sense. He couldn't say anything can also be said with the form he wasn't able to say anything. Could is used for the past conditional, and how do we do that? We use could followed by the auxiliary have in the present tense. As you see, this is the base form plus the past participle of the main verb. He could have come. The sentence means that we are referring to an action that could have taken place in the past, but actually hasn't. He could have come, but probably never did. As you can see, in order for us to express the idea of condition in the past, could has to be followed by the base form of have and by the base form, or as in this case, the past participle of the main verb to come. If I say instead he could come, I am not referring to the past, but I'm actually referring to a conditional present. Therefore, it's very important to understand what we are trying to say. May, might can be substituted by to be allowed to, which indicate the true meaning, the deep meaning of the verb, and it is used to express request of permission. May I go out? May I close the door? Whereas if I say, can I close the door? I'm asking if I am capable of closing the door. In case we want to express probability, the idea behind it, and therefore the verb construction that might replace it is to be likely. So if I say the train may be late, I am expressing the probability that the train could be late. He may still be at home. I'm saying that perhaps the person is still at home. I'm not sure. If I want to request something or give an advice, I will also use might. You might try that shop, it's more polite. Only may instead can be used for assumption or concession, as in this case. Mr. Bates may be 40 at most, meaning that I have an intuition or an impression, or perhaps I have more information that gives me the opportunity, the ability, the possibility to say that the person cannot be older than 40 years old. We also use it to wish somebody well or ill, but these are more likely to be considered as idiomatic expressions. So if I want to say to someone, may you be happy, may is the right verb to use, just as if I want to launch an wish somebody ill, I can say, may God punish them. Like in the previous case, might is also used for the past conditional, and the construction is the same as before. He might have come. As you can see, the modal might is followed by the base form of have, and the past participle of the verb to come. Summing up then, can, could are used respectively, can in the present and could in the past simple or the past conditional. For all the other missing verb tenses, both are replaced by to be able to. I haven't been able to see him. He hadn't been able to go out. As you can see, in the first case, we're using the negative sentence in the present perfect. In the second case, it is used in the past perfect. May, might are also used respectively in the present simple may and in the present and past conditional might. All the missing verbs can be substituted either by to be allowed to, if we're asking permission, or if we want to express probability, by to be likely. You aren't allowed to go out. He is likely to succeed. That wasn't likely to happen. In the second video, we will discuss more in detail shall, should, must, ought,